And it's football time here in Clemson, South Carolina, as we're getting you ready here at CSN Live at Lakeside Lodge. Mark Sturgis, Joe Bostic, and Joe, it's here. They're playing at 4 p.m. in the Valley tomorrow against the Citadel. There's no stopping us now.
That's right. The Valley will be rocking, 19,000 strong.
Well, I think I saw last time was 1960-something that they had less than 20,000 in Death Valley, and that will be the case tomorrow. But those are 20,000 of the luckiest sports fans in the upstate right now, because the top-ranked Tigers handled their business this past Saturday night up in Winston-Salem. And quite honestly, Joe Bostic, felt like they left a little bit of meat on the bone, so to speak.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, it was such a nice thing to watch the Tigers play. We have got a good team.
Yes.
A little bit concerned about our DBs, but I'll tell you what, that team, they did so many good things and looked so effortless doing it. And it just really amazing performance by the Tigers. Went there, no crowd. I think there were 50 people. Last I've ever heard Grove Stadium, though. I guess they piped in a lot of music or a lot of crowd noise. But, yeah, we got a great team. And the guy in the mirror, that's going to be our biggest challenge. The Tigers every week have got to look at themselves. What can I do better individually, and what can we do better as a team?
Absolutely. And, again, 4 p.m. tomorrow on the ACC network against the Citadel kickoff. But, Joe, first of all, we're live here at Lakeside Lodge. You can find all the information at lakesidelodgeclemson.com. It is literally Clemson's only resort hotel experience. The restaurant's been packed tonight. We've had great acoustic music from Louis Saggedy. We will move that up to Traditions after this show for another hour. So if you're here in the Clemson area, get in the car and come join us, because we're going to still be having some fun after we get off the air. But, you know, the great part about this place is if you don't own a condo but you want to be part of the Clemson experience, rent one of these, rent it for a night, rent it for a weekend. I ran into a great couple tonight whose son is a freshman offensive lineman. I know that's dear to your heart. Got 3 snaps in last week in Winston-Salem, and they were like, what a great place as a parent to be here for your son's first home football game.
You know, I was over here today earlier, had a meeting with developers Steve Mudge and Leighton Cubbage, and unbeknownst to me, they've got meeting rooms here also. Mm-hmm. So if you've got a group of people in your workforce, you want to come here and have an experience at some of the meeting rooms here, and have some of your group of people working on things, you know, away from your office, they've got that. So every time I come here, I find something new about this place, and it really is such a neat place. A beautiful place, a place you can really relax, and now I know you can get some work done also.
Well, again, you can also come here and get your BYOG gear. That is bring your own guts, you know, the Dabo Swinney line from back in the day, some really neat stuff, and we'll tell you more about that. But you can come pick up gear right here at Lakeside Lodge as well. So, Joe, a couple other things. I've got the best, I don't know, protection's the right word I want to use tonight, but here in a little bit, we're going to be joined by your brother, Jeff Bostic. I mean, that's the first time somebody's been covered by 2 Bostic brothers since Steve Fuller in the Gator Bowl in 1978, when, yes, Clemson did knock off The Ohio State University.
Yes, we did. I think the Bostic brothers could protect you a lot better 40 years ago than we can now. But we will do the very best we can to keep you safe and unharmed, like we tried to do with Steve Fuller. But it's awfully nice to have old brother Jeff here tonight with us. I think he's the second leading NFL games of any Clemson football player in the history of Clemson, and he holds the record for having the most Super Bowl wins and the most Super Bowl appearances. So Jeff went on to have a really, really good career here at Clemson, but had an even better career professionally with the Washington Redskins, well, the old Washington Redskins.
Also, we're going to be joined in a little bit by Brian Tillotson, who played here at Clemson from 1991 to 94. That was the Brian Dawkins era. And even more interesting than that, Brian is an official during practice every day. So he gets to see up close how this program goes on. Also, I've already done an interview with Bill Bender, a national college football writer from the Sporting News, and one thing we can tell you that our friends in Ohio are happy, even though they're getting to the table late. The Big Ten announces 2 days ago they are going to kick off their season on October 24th. So that's going to be an interesting thing in its own right, is what type of slack will we cut the Big Ten, especially if we see games canceled, and we've already seen Houston and Baylor canceled for tomorrow.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those years. I really am still perplexed at how or why Ohio State or the Big Ten did exactly what they did. For some reason, we are rent-free in their head for some reason. I don't know why, but Ohio State we seem to be the first thing they think about whenever. I mean, it's amazing. But we are 4-0 against them, so I guess if
I mean, that fan base, I mean, 11warriors.com and all, they'll come after you hard and tell you you're nothing. And I'm like, whoa, you can't do that until you win one game against a team from the Palmetto State.
If we're nothing, you're 4 games less than nothing.
That's exactly right. Also, final segment, we have a special guest picker. I'm going to keep that one close to the vest until that coach shows up, because he's one of my favorite. Well, now you know it's a Mel, but it's one of my favorite coaches on campus, and he has left one of the longest imprints as well, but always a great chance. So let's have some fun tonight, and let's just celebrate college football's back here in the upstate.
We got to make you for a great show tonight.
Yep, absolutely. So last week, you got to go back. You can't look forward until you stop in football and take a look at what happened last week, but 37-13 was the final score. And I had a couple of takeaways from the game, Joe. Number one, even Dave Clawson admitted post-game that the score was closer than the game actually was. He said Clemson left some points out there on the table, but the first 38 minutes was really impressive, both offensively and defensively. And one of the questions I mentioned last week was seeing how Trevor Lawrence would be settled in game number 1. 22 of 28, 1 touchdown throwing, 2 touchdowns rushing. But what I was most impressed with, no 50-50 balls. You know, last year there was a lot of 50-50 balls to T. Higgins and Justin Ross. None of that. He just looked to be really in sync right off the bat.
Yeah, he was really sharp. You know, last week we talked about Joe Burrow, and when we played LSU last year, and I think it was kind of a wake-up call for Trevor Lawrence that we played this game. And at the end of this game, I know Trevor had to come off that field and say, you know what, I was not the best quarterback on the field. And I think he took that to heart and said, you know what, I'm going to work on my game, and I'm going to be the next Joe Burrow next year. And I think that start he had in Winston-Salem was indicative of all the hard work, study, the thought that you know, he is destined in his mind to be the very best quarterback in the whole entire nation, and also performed at that level. And sometimes, you know, a loss, you learn a lot more about yourself in a loss than you do a win. And sometimes when you go 29 games in a row and you win, you don't really seriously take a look at yourself. But he made some throws last week. Some of those high-low coverages, had to throw it over one guy in front of another guy. He made some big-time, professional throws. And those throws, when you're at one hash mark and you're throwing over the corner on the other sideline, those are hard throws, or long throws. It gives people the opportunity to run up and make interceptions. But he has really got a strong arm, and he made some tough throws and made them look pretty easy.
And then you had to be proud, both you and Jeff, with the performance of the offensive line, especially the first-team offensive line. 2 wide-open touchdown runs by Trevor Lawrence. Travis Etienne gets his 100 yards, and, you know, that's exactly what you wanted to happen there. But my other big takeaway, Joe, the freshman defensive lineman, Miles Murphy. I mean, he's leading you in tackles, 3 sacks as a true freshman. And, Brian Breesy's just starting to get lathered up.
Oh, yeah, that kid's he's going to be super. You know, on offense, the guy that really took a step up, in my opinion, was Amari Rogers, I'm sorry. Amari Cooper's Alabama guy. Amari Rogers, he looked like he was half a second faster in the 40. He had that knee injury last year, and played really inspired football last year. He looked like a different person on the field. And the offensive line, there's some nasty guys there, Bockhorst and Stewart at the center. Those two guys are nasty guys, and they're going to bring that kind of saltiness to that offensive line. He's going to make guys like Jackson Carman much better players because they bring that kind of nastiness every day. And Murphy and Breesy, those two kids, they didn't make every play, and they looked a little bit like freshmen from time to time. But I'm going to tell you what, those kids, when the game slows down, they're going to figure it out. I'll never forget, we used to go to training camp, and those first few practices, we'd have live one-on-one pass protection. And you come out of your stance, and this guy in front of me looks like he's going 9,000 miles an hour. And I mean, it's like, bam, choom, choom, choom. And, you're not even laying a glove on the guy. And after about a week, things would slow down, and you could breathe, and then all of a sudden you kind of watch the guy's chest instead of watching his hands and his head, and then you kind of get in your groove and you do your thing. And that's what's going to happen with Breesy. He's going to get in there, and everything's going to go 1,000 miles an hour, and then one day it's going to slow down, and then he is really going to start dominating.
I'm with you on that one. And, some of the Clemson fans that have gotten greedy in this run showed up in the fourth quarter. All right, put the starters back in. We need more points on the board. Protect this number one ranking. I go back to last year when Clemson beat Georgia Southern at home 38-7. There were a lot of people in the Twitter world and social media world that wasn't enough. No, it was about playing players and getting them ready. Clemson played 78 of the 80 players that they traveled with. Lyn-J Dixon could have played, but they held him out because he was a little banged up. This year it's more important than ever to develop depth, because you don't know if you might be missing 10 players a couple of games from now. So it is very important for Dabo Swinney and crew to play as many players and develop that depth.
You can have 5 guys get COVID and not be in a game, and so all those plays that you've allowed them to play at Wake Forest will pay you off dividends down the road. And and you're going to need some guys are going to get hurt. You're going to have some knees. You're going to have luckily for Davis, Tyler Davis, the great sophomore defensive tackle, he gets nicked up a little bit. Well, the next guy up, and he'll be back. Luckily for us, he'll be back. But things happen. It's the next guy up. So the more you can allow them to play today, the better they're going to be able to perform later on. And and there's something to be said about getting your feet wet. Like I told you last week, that first game of the season was the most nervous game that I ever had. Every year was that first game. And then once somebody pops you one time, okay, I'm all right, ready to settle down, do my thing. But no, Dabo Swinney, who's going to second guess that guy? He knows his team. He knows these players. He knows who's close to being a good player, and letting them get their feet wet a little bit, because he's going to need those guys down the road.
Absolutely. Now, the other thing from the ACC is I got a bust on you and Michael Foster and Levon Kirkland for buying into that whole Florida State thing, because did you notice here comes Georgia Tech and Coach Collins there in the fourth quarter, and Georgia Tech walks away from Florida State. I mean, well, things will eventually get better in Tallahassee, Joe, but I just never thought that I would see this go on with that Florida State football program.
Yeah, that's very, 2013 they won a national championship, and we're talking 7 years later, and it's almost like somebody has taken the tires off the car. Mm-hmm. And you've got guys with the coach making some statements during the preseason, and you got players calling the head coach out. I mean, I've never heard of anything like that. But obviously there's some problems there. There's some things that need to get sorted out. But you were right on time with that one. So I got to take my hat off to you.
And then Duke and Notre Dame. I mean, what did I take away from that game other than Notre Dame didn't cover was, man, Duke had many, many opportunities in that football game to pull closer and even potentially pull out a win. If Notre Dame, granted it's the first game of the season, but I thought Duke looked like they had a lot more players than I was expecting.
Oh yeah, I was a little disappointed in Notre Dame, and I was a little bit surprised and impressed with Duke. Coach Cutt, he's a great coach. Doesn't quite have the talent that a Notre Dame would have, but you would think at Notre Dame at home, that they would prevail pretty strongly. But Duke showed up. I thought Chase Bryce played a good game. He's got all these new guys he's dealing with. He didn't have a spring to practice with all these guys, but I thought he played very well. And Duke's going to be all right.
Yeah, and the other games on Saturday, of course, North Carolina gets a win, 31-6 over Syracuse. Pitt blanked Austin Peay 55-0, and Louisville beat Western Kentucky. But we're live here at Lakeside Lodge for CSN Live, and of course, in the next segment, we'll be joined by the other Bostic brother. But you can find out everything you need to know about Lakeside Lodge, the fantastic food at Traditions on the Lake, the wonderful pool that was put in by Hot Springs Pool and Spas with the bar out there. And did you notice tonight what's been added to the pool bar?
I did not.
2 new big screen TVs out there, Joe. So you're talking about every time you show up, there's something new here at Lakeside Lodge. And again, located at 13,500 Tiger Boulevard in Hartwell Village. And what a great place. We're so thankful for Leighton and everybody.
Yeah, so, this is a wonderful place.
So let's catch in with our good friend Cindy Isaacs-Green, the best of the three of us, and find out what she has going on. And then I got a couple of questions to ask the Bostic brothers, and let's just see how nice they were growing up.
Hey there, Mark. Thank you very much. I tell you what, I'm going to take us back to 1990, where we had the lead linesman for the chain team of the Colorado-Missouri game. He was on his way home from the game, and he had to pull over and throw up. He heard on the radio the summary of the game that he had officiated and found out that Colorado, in the last 3 seconds, had actually won the game on a 5th down marker mistake. Yes, under his crew team. So we now know that the Clemson chain crew, they play a vital role in spotting the ball on the line of scrimmage on the first down and also making sure that that marker number is correct. I'm here with Brian Tillison, who is a former Clemson linebacker, and he is also on the chain crew here at Clemson home games, while he also officiates at practice games. He is actually married to a Clemson cheerleader and rally cat, used to be, and her name is Nina. So, Brian, have you ever had something like that happen?
No, not in that kind of a situation. Never a 5th down or anything like that. We do a lot of checks and balances within the crew, especially in high school ball games, college games, anything that we're involved in. We really make sure that we're checking back with each other to make sure those situations just don't happen.
I mean, that's like the worst nightmare that can happen. My worst nightmare is probably waking up and thinking I'm a Alabama, Georgia, or South Carolina fan and have a red car in my garage. But anyway, you were on the field as a football player. Now you're on the other side on the crew. How does that feel, being on this field in a different capacity?
Just as long as I'm involved. I mean, that's the biggest thing. And Coach Sweeney's made it very, very easy to come back and really enjoy something like this. It's been unique. It's been different. It's definitely not like a player. You think you know the game until you step across on the other side and you're an official, and then you realize just how much of the game you did not know. And even to this day, I'm still learning things and picking up things. I'm surrounded by a tremendous crew on the chain crew. All of us are high school football officials, so every single one of us are very involved with the games. We've actually been called by the ACC officials the best chain crew in the ACC.
Wow, that is awesome. Now, I tell you what, I found out with talking with you that you are around the Sweeney and the Dabo staff a lot. And you played for Hatfield. How do you think that that atmosphere between the player and coach, has it changed?
I mean, Coach Sweeney is just, amazing. It's his authenticity, his character, his morals. I think, you want to be around a winner. I mean, everybody wants to be around a winner. But it's what are you doing outside of the game that makes you different and makes you unique? And if you've ever been around Coach Sweeney, if you've ever talked to Coach Sweeney, if you've ever had a conversation with him, just the positive nature that he is, the quotes that he has, I tell him all the time, I learn more from you just standing around listening that I can, employ in my life. And he's just truly amazing. The difference is really it's the entire culture, the entire character of not just him, but the staff, the players, everyone who touches this program. They're all balled in. I mean, when he says all in, everyone is all in. And it's definitely a unique situation. It's a winning culture all the way through. and just proud to be a part of it.
That is awesome. Now, you also told me a story about how you met your wife. I think it's pretty unique. Tell us that story.
So just real quick, I mean, I was actually getting ready to go into the game. The coach had his hand on my back and was getting ready to push me in. My wife's a rally cat, and so I'm standing down there looking at her, and I had no idea what the coach said. I have no idea what they told me to go do. And out of nowhere, I get this big shove onto the field because I'm sitting here watching her dance. And all I could think about is I've got to get off this field, and I've got to find her number. And it went from there. We broke up, got back together, and then all of a sudden, I have to say, because she'll kill me, but she did call me, and I took a little time, and I called her back, and from there it spiraled and went from there. And 24 years later, we've still been married. I have 2 children. My daughter actually just graduated from Clemson, cum laude, with a psychology degree and criminal justice, and looking to head to law school. Her name's Emma. And my son Thomas actually was a football player at Limestone. He's in his junior year, but just had a health situation, so I can announce it to people who know. But he had a stomach and a heart issue, so he's had to give up the sport. But he's still doing strong and doing his thing, and we're just happy and blessed.
Yes, and I have watched Brian for years on that sideline, and I do not know how you stay as cool as a cucumber when Clemson does something good, because I know I'd be like, ooh, we move in, get out of the way. I'm telling you, they'd have me underneath the bench by the first quarter. I'd be done. But guys, there you go. We have Brian Tillison here, and look for him on the sidelines of the Clemson home games.
Hey, welcome back. And Joe, that is so important. Such an important job, not only during the week, during practice, because that's where your standards are created. You don't want to go through the fall and then all of a sudden throw officials into it. So that's very important to have those guys as part of practice every day.
Absolutely. My last head football coach, Gene Stallings, I'll never forget him saying to us, and he was Dabo's head coach at Alabama. He said, you need to have a genuine appreciation for everybody and the contributions of everybody in the organization. And he would go down to the managers that wash your clothes, the guy that puts the lines on the football field, the guys that are holding the chains, the referees, the secretaries in the office. So I've always been a big fan of taking and trying to go by the people that don't get the fanfare and say, hey, I really do appreciate what you do. You make my job a lot easier. Same thing with the guys back here.
Clipping,
they work hard,
job.
And they give us an opportunity to stand up here and yak a little bit, and I appreciate what all y'all do.
Well, let's see. It's that time. But first, before we bring them on, we've got a little highlight package that we put together on Jeff Bostic. 1 year younger than Joe, but these highlights are brought to you by Hall of Fame Sports Grill. That's 531 Wade Hampton Boulevard, and they have a slew of things during the week. My night's Tuesday night for trivia. Wednesday, of course, is music bingo, dirty bingo on Thursdays, and Friday nights is karaoke with Fred Rock, and they are all set up. Joe, you got to come up if you're not going to a game. They are having tailgating in the parking lot where you can bring your own stuff and tailgate, bring your own food, cook it, the whole 9 yards, just like you were here at Death Valley. So HallOfFameSportsGrill.com. But here's a quick highlight package on one of the best linemen that's ever come through Clemson University. Not Joe Bostic as well, Jeff Bostic. And again, this legendary family, part of the rebirth, if you will, of Clemson football in the 70s. Let's welcome on one of the original Hogs as well from the Washington Redskins line, but former Clemson center, Jeff Bostic. I mean, so you stop and think about this. Your big brother, but some of the things with your little brother is he is a 3-time Super Bowl champion. He was a member of the 1983 Pro Bowl team. He's been named one of the 70 greatest Washington Redskins of all time, and he's also in the Washington Redskins Ring of Fame. So you got to be proud of that as an older brother.
Oh, he invited me when he got put in the Ring of Honor, and I don't know how many people are in that Ring of Honor at Washington.
57.
57 people, and they're playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and he invites me to come to the game, and it's such a great thing to watch them pull the sheets off the side of that stadium and see number 53 Jeff Bostic, and so as a big brother, you take your hat off and you're awful proud, and Jeff's just had a phenomenal career, and he's a better person than he was a football player, so I'm awful proud of him in all areas of his life.
Well, he was an awfully good player here at Clemson. Obviously, probably more proud of anything that a 1980 graduate, Jeff, but you were named to Clemson's All-Centennial team in 1996, the school's Hall of Fame in 1997, the South Carolina Athletic Hall of Fame as well, and again, 3 Super Bowls. And my biggest question is, did you show up in 76 with a little bit of a chip on your shoulder because of older brother? Were there any good fights in Greensboro, North Carolina growing up between Joe and Jeff Bostic?
I tried not to fight him because at 12 years old, he was like 6'2", 200 pounds. He was huge. And as a junior in high school, he was 6'4", 280. And at the same time, I was like 6 foot, 155. I didn't fight him, no.
But
not
you
at
had
all.
the leverage. You got the leverage as a center.
I probably hit him with a pool stick and maybe something else, but I was a lot faster than he was, so I would hit and run.
So was there any doubt, Joe has shared with me, and number one, the love that he has for you is so real, because in getting to know him over a couple of months, you can feel it. But was there any doubt when your time came as a senior in high school that you'd be coming on down I-85 to Clemson, South Carolina? Because he said he went to that game in '74 at Kenan Stadium in Chapel Hill, and they announced basketball practice was starting, and people got up and left and said, I am not playing football at North Carolina.
Well, I was fortunate. I tell people, my brother was a can't miss. I was a can't make. I was going to go to college doing 3 things. First, I was going to go to college wrestling. Second, I was going to go play baseball. And third, I was going to play football. Now, we ran an archaic offense in our high school. We ran a single wing offense. And I'm convinced to this day the best position I could have ever played would have been middle linebacker. But our coach would not let me do it because I was the only person on the team that could snap the ball. So after my senior year, I get invited to the East-West All-Star game in North Carolina, and I haven't played defense in 3 years. And there's coaches from Central North Carolina West, and they go, how many inside linebackers do we have? I raised my hand. Well, I played the game, and I had 18 tackles.
Wow.
And fortunately, the guy that had recruited Joe the year before, Ed Emery, was at the game. I was going to go to Fork Union Military Academy, a prep school, and transfer the following year. And I really went from 190 from wrestling season to playing in that game at 225. So Ed Emery comes down on the field after the game and he said, damn, little Bostic, you can play. Well, Joe had gone to camp about 3 or 4 days before I was supposed to go to Fork Union, and I was out doing like my little 3-mile run, and my parents' car pulled up beside me, which was weird.
What have I done wrong?
And my mother rolls down the window and she says, you've got to get in the car. We've got to go to Clemson. Well, my first thought was, did Joe get hurt? And my mother said, no, they had a kid quit and they offered you a full scholarship. That's how I got here.
And all you needed was that opportunity, and the rest is history.
Well,
Unbelievable.
his first day, tell me your first day what happened. I guarantee you there's never been a Clemson University student athlete who has ever done all of this in one day.
We got here, we left Greensboro about 6 o'clock and got here about 10. I met with Colonel Robbins. I went from registration to acceptance to scheduling classes to going to class and going to practice in one day.
And got a physical.
And got a physical. Thankfully, it wasn't, I'm not even going there, no.
But, that's when you know it's supposed to be. And of course, I guess just the cherry on it was the opportunity to anchor that line for a few years with your older brother. And, you know, it was amazing because I grew up, I didn't play football, but Clemson football was part of our family. We came down here, tailgated, went to the games, and you know, it was about 7. It was that game when Rex Farn ran the interception back for a touchdown, and that 21-14 loss to Maryland, I think.
Yep.
It's like, okay, this team's got a chance, and then goes on to the bowl game. And I mean, how much pride do y'all take in the fact that that's the era that really jump-started everything else, including Dabo Swinney's run here over the last decade?
Well, I was telling somebody earlier today, there's one person that does not get enough credit for Clemson football being where it is today, and that's the late, great Charlie Pell.
Mm-hmm.
Charlie Pell was a linebacker coach here my freshman year in 1976, and after the season, Red Parker got fired, and they named Charlie the head coach. And he literally took the same team that went 4-7 and 2-9. The next year we go 8-3, and Clemson goes to a bowl game for the first time in 18 years. And the following year we really should have gone undefeated. We finished 11-1 and finished 5th in the country.
Is that one loss in Athens? Steve, 12-7, I believe it was, or
No,
12-0.
12-0, yeah.
We had 6 guys on that offense who played at least 8 years in the NFL starters, and we still hadn't scored a point. I mean, it's
Well, it's like our friend George Rogers. You know, I love to tell George he never scored a touchdown against Clemson.
And George and I were teammates in Washington. I reminded George of that often.
But what would his go-to comment be right back to you? Yeah, but I got a lot of yards in between.
I got my Heisman.
So,
George's a good dude.
He is very much so. Again, we're joined here at this great property, Lakeside Lodge, with the Bostic brothers. And, of course, we'd be remiss if we don't thank Ingles Supermarkets, located in 6 states across the Southeast. Also, all throughout the upstate, bakeries, delis, even more importantly, Hank's Beverages. They carry Hank's root beers. And if you are a root beer fan, which I'm not, Hank's is the best. I'm sorry, I just got to drop that in there. But Hank's root beer, again, love the low prices, love the savings with Ingles Supermarkets. When we come back, we're going to talk some about the Citadel game tomorrow. Get going as well with an interview with Bill Bender from the Sporting News. And then, of course, in our final segment, we got a guest picker who, quite frankly, I think exemplifies, just like the Bostic brothers, what Clemson athletics is all about. But Cindy, what you got going on for us now? Because I know it's next level gear.
It is. I am here with Allison Vantoff, and she is the co-founder of the Almar gear. And we actually have a model here, and her name is?
Ava Vantoff.
And you go to Clemson, am I correct? What are you studying?
Yes, I'm a sophomore at Clemson, and I'm studying marketing.
That is awesome. And she is actually modeling one of the newest styles. So I'm going to let Allison tell us a little bit about that.
Thank you, Cindy. As Cindy said, I am one of the co-founders of the Almar Lifestyle Apparel brand, which basically marries a t-shirt or a hoodie with a built-in patent-pending COVID protection face covering. So you never have to worry about leaving home without your mask. And it's really exciting. Ava is wearing this. And this garment that Ava's wearing is a custom PFD garment dyed Clemson 165. If you're a Clemson fan like we all are here, it's Clemson 165 and Regalia 268. It's custom PFD dyed. And as you can see, it's got the built-in facial covering, which is called the Almar. And you can purchase these at Tiger Sport Shop in both locations, and also Dabo Swinney's Bring Your Own Guts website, which I manage and run for Dabo, where a portion of our proceeds go to Kathleen and Dabo's All-In Team Foundation.
Yes, and let me tell you, you also have on a shirt, so let's not forget that. We have sweatshirts, but you also have short sleeve shirts. I have 2 sweatshirts, and I have this shirt.
Yeah, it's great. I wore this because this is a unisex t-shirt that's also found on the BYOG website and also at Tiger Sport Shop. But I wore it to show that women can also wear a unisex t-shirt and make it a little bit more of a fashion statement, and also support their Tigers if you're a true diehard Clemson fan like all of us are.
And let me ask you, because you've got a very interesting story on how this even came about.
See, you're going to make me cry. So we live in Los Angeles, California. I'm originally from Charlotte, North Carolina, and went to California to go to college and ended up staying and having children and raising a family. And we, in California, it's pretty challenging right now that everywhere we go, we have to wear masks. And I have a son who's in college. And Ava and Trevor came home from college like May or March 13th or 14th. And we had a mandatory facial covering mask, mandatory mask wearing. You have to wear a mask everywhere you go. And so Trevor, my son, who couldn't really wrap his head around that this is like a law and you'll get fined $350 if you walk out of your house into the street, your neighbors will basically report you. So we were in a grocery store, and Trevor, I wear scarves and hats a lot. If I'm not wearing my BYOG hat, I'm wearing my Carolina Panther hat that I'm going to have to retire now and get a Washington hat because Coach Rivera is my guy. But anyway, Trevor looks at me because he had forgotten his mask, and the manager comes up to us and says, "Son, you forgot your mask." And so Trevor looks at me and Ava, and Ava just says, "Trevor, I told you so." So Trevor pulled my scarf from around my neck, and we were like sharing this scarf. And so he's like, "Mom, you're really creative. You're the most creative person I know, and you got to figure this out." So we went home that night, and I started thinking about what Trevor said. And I've been in college licensing and professional sports licensing for my entire 30-year career, designing merchandise for fans and athletes and coaches and staff and alumni. And I'm like, I can do this. I'm going to figure out something that, helps kids. And having college kids, it started to kind of resonate. So I went into my closet, Trevor and Ava's closet, and pulled out every single hoodie that they had in our house, because I knew, being in licensing, that hoodies are the number one piece of apparel that is sold 24/7, 365 days a year, no matter what in climate you're in. So I took my scarves and I just started kind of playing around with the fabric and, positioning it. And I go, there's got to be a way that I can get this fabric to stay in there and it looks really good. And, the stitches stay. We call it a ditch in the stitch in manufacturing. And I'm like, I'm going to call my longtime, colleague who has printed almost every T-shirt for every NFL team or every college that I work with. And I called her the next day and I said, "Maria, I have this idea." And I went down and saw her and I drew it out on paper for her. And she's like, "Okay, Allie, let me take a look at this." And she called in her head seamstress, and his name is Freddie, and he only speaks Spanish. And he starts speaking in Spanish, and I didn't know if he was talking about me or not, thinking, who is that crazy person? Like, what idea is this? So anyway, I went back the next day, and Maria brought out a hoodie that had the facial covering, which is a special fabric because it's real important to feel soft around your face, to not, absorb like moisture that can cause acne or something like that. And so I'm like, oh my goodness. So I just started crying, and I called my attorney and I said, I think I have something here. I need to get this thing patented. I'm not really sure where this is going to go, but it's patented, and we're super excited because it also, what was exciting is that having Ava and Trevor in college, we started doing these Zoom focus groups because, everybody's on Zoom, whether you're working or in school, or it's like they were still in class. So they have friends that go to college from every college across the country. Yes. So I started getting their feedback, and they're just like, oh my gosh, I want one. I'll never have to worry about forgetting my mask and get in trouble. So, yes. And the name Almar, just so you know, Almar, when I started researching this, hoodies and where hoodies date back to, like the Benedictine monks, and a major apparel brand was the first apparel brand to put a hoodie in the market. And the definition of a hoodie is trustworthy, your go-to, it's a security, it's your wingman or your BFF, your bae. And I started thinking, okay, we have to think of a name that resonates to what a hoodie stands for. So then I started looking up the definition of Allison and Maria, who is my partner, and there were a lot of adjectives and verbs that are synonymous with, like, you know, trustworthy, honest, your go-to girl, your go-to friend, friendly or whatnot. So Almar is a combination of Allison and Maria.
Awesome, awesome. So guys, you heard it. You can get your gear at the Tiger Sports Shop, and I have too, and they are extremely nicely made. So hop on over and get your gear, or we have some here.
And see, it goes like this. You just like can walk, and then it's like,
There you go. Thank you so much for coming.
thank you.
And welcome back in is again that you, for a business owner or somebody, guys, and y'all had a very successful career in building and construction after your pro days in the NFL. Patent pending's got to be a nice word when you're involved in a business, right?
Definitely, because if you don't, somebody else is going
That's
to steal
right.
your idea.
That is so true. That is so true. And we're, again, joined by Joe and Jeff Bostic here, Clemson football legends from the 70s, former pro players as well. But, you know, even you guys had that one game every year. You know, I like the fact that even though it's not mandated contractually, the state of South Carolina had asked Clemson and the University of South Carolina roughly 10 to 12 years ago, if you're going to do an FCS game, would you please make it an in-state team? And you notice every year, Clemson and Carolina have one of these in-state teams because it helps out. But tomorrow is the Citadel. And here are a few facts when it comes to this game. The Clemson and the Citadel first got together in 1909. Clemson leads this series 32 wins, 5 losses, 1 tie. 17 wins in a row since the Citadel last won 6-0 in 1931. So tomorrow is your day again, Joe. Like you've mentioned, one of Clemson's biggest things is playing that man in the mirror.
Yeah, our Clemson guys have got to, got to get going. Look at themselves. Got a little something going on with the microphone there. Get themselves going, get themselves motivated. Like I said last week, BYOM, bring your own motivation. You got to be ready to play. The competition's within yourself. Obviously, Clemson's a much better team than the Citadel is, but not to be taken lightly. It's going to remind you, the Citadel's going to remind you a lot of an old Georgia Tech Paul Johnson game, 3 yards in a cloud of dust, triple option. So, you know, Clemson and Brent Venables has really got that Georgia Tech triple option defense down pat. So I expect a big win for the Tigers tomorrow, but it's another stepping stone, an opportunity to get better, show up, play good, and perform and get better.
Hey, you know, some people here in the crowd may love this comment, but you know, Dabo, some people laughed at him across the country for saying the Citadel can embarrass you real quick. Yeah, it happened in Williams-Brice Stadium a few years ago when they knock off South Carolina, and it was just a couple of years ago. I think they were down 21-7 to Alabama at halftime in Bryant-Denny Stadium. So, you know, this is a chance for those guys to step up and leave their mark as well, Jeff.
This Citadel team is probably nowhere near as talented, but I'll guarantee you they have just as much heart. Mm-hmm. And heart goes a long way of playing football. And I think I'm correct in saying this. In 1976, I think the Citadel beat us my freshman year, or almost beat us. It was a very close game.
10-7.
10-7.
Yeah. It was a very closely played game.
Ciro Picarillo kicked a field goal, and they really outplayed us.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and those things can happen. And, you know, the Citadel comes in with, you know, unfortunately, talent disparity, but their quarterback, Brandon Rainey, last week, and we got to give a shout out. The Citadel went down to Tampa and played the University of South Florida, and our good friend gets his first win as head coach of the South Florida program there, and 27-6, and they played pretty tough, but 4 of 18 was Brandon Rainey at quarterback, but he also led the Citadel with 20 rushes for 65 yards. So that's not, you know, what Jeff Scott getting his first win with the Bulls. 4 out of 18, but 20 rushes for 65 yards. That's not exactly what you want to take into a game against this type of defense.
No, all the defensive coaches in America try to make you one-dimensional. Fortunately or unfortunately for Citadel, they make themselves one-dimensional. They run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. And once they get behind one of those triple option teams, they just have a very difficult time catching back up.
You're going to see Brett Venables tomorrow with 7 and 8 in the box. They're going to stuff the run, and they're going to make Citadel do what they don't want to do, and that's pass the ball.
Yeah, and they did not do it very well last week. 4 out of 18 total. Defensively, the Citadel played okay. Gave up 389 yards of total offense. They were only down 20-6 to South Florida at halftime. And so, even with my SEC math guys, that means they played a competitive 7-0 second half. So I think this is one of those games that
we used to call these landmine games. These are the type of games that can blow up on you. So if you're Dabo Swinney, you want that team to come down that hill, be ready to play from the first snap, set the tone, and take the heart right out of the Citadel.
Yeah, these military guys are special people. And these guys are you got great constitutions, tough-minded people. So they're going to play hard. They're going to play extremely hard. I'm telling you, that 1976 game we played against Citadel, they had an All-American linebacker by the name of Brian Ruff. And I still say he's one of the best college football players I ever played against. This kid was tough. He was like walking around like his eyes were just, he was on a mission. And this guy must have made 20 tackles.
Well, one of the reasons they play the game is for somebody to win, and the Big 12 never thought that they would go 0-3 last week against the Sun Belt. That's how many good football players there are with 85 scholarships out there now. But 3-0, the Big 12 goes down to the Sun Belt teams at home in check games.
And I wonder how much of this involves very little spring practice, very little preseason practice to get. I don't know how these kids have gotten ready for these games in this short amount of period of time unless they're very disciplined on their own, running, lifting, doing the things it takes to get ready.
And I think Jeff, that hits the nail on the head with Dabo Swinney's program, because these players are policing it themselves. They're holding each other accountable. So they have been putting practices out there together on their own, and that puts that type of team a little bit further ahead. But I caught up with a good friend, Bill Bender. You can follow him on Twitter at BillBender92. He is the national college football writer for the Sporting News, and I've known Bill for a long time, and we got to talking a little bit about what all's going on, including the Big Ten coming back with football and some questions that he took away from the Clemson-Wake Forest game on Saturday night. Back in CSN Live from Lakeside Lodge, and this is truly a pleasure of mine. It's a good friend of mine, Bill Bender, national college football columnist for the Sporting News. And Bill, after being away from you for a little over a year, thank you for taking the time to get back.
Oh, thank you, Mark. I mean, we're glad that you're back. I see all the Clemson stuff in your background. It's good to talk about something that isn't COVID. Well, I hope we can if you want, but I mean, it's great to talk about college football and everything that goes with it, and especially to be back on with you.
Well, let's talk about, first of all, it was week number 1 of what's going to be a weird 2020 season this past week. Did you have any takeaways from the weekend, much less anything when it comes to top-rate Clemson, since we're a Clemson show?
Clemson's super talented, Mark. And when Dabo says this might be his most talented team, you kind of, at first glance, you're like, how can that be? I watched Dexter Lawrence on Sunday. I watch T. Higgins on Sunday and Deshaun Watson. And then you watch them Saturday night right off the go. And Trevor and Travis are as efficient as ever. There's targets all over the place. What I was most impressed with is what I'm usually most impressed with Clemson, believe it or not, and that's a defensive line. Young freshmen making an impact. The depth there is incredible. Despite some losses in the secondary, their defense flexed. I mean, they are a heavyweight, and they look good.
Most years when Clemson gets the season started, I think Dabo and crew are as much interested about the number of players that they play as anything else to score on the scoreboard. However, this year they played 78 of the 80 that they took to wait. They held 2 out because they didn't have to play them. They were a little banged up. Is this year under COVID-20 even more important to get that extra bench, some experience for not knowing what's coming down the line?
Absolutely. And I mean, Dabo's been renowned for that in the past. And you wonder, I mean, you saw the second half in particular, they really could have picked their score there. They
Right.
probably could have scored 51 or 58. And I don't want to say they hit the brakes. They just had some younger players play and get some experience. And that's what you need. I mean, when you get a backup quarterback, first thing I texted when DJ got in the game was I texted my buddies. I was like, well, the backup has a cannon too. So, you know, you got to see that, how many running backs they have. And the depth you mentioned, I mean, at any given week, team like Texas Tech, team like Memphis, 20, 25 COVID cases on a team, more than that at Texas Tech. I mean, you do need that depth, and Dabo's playing the strength there.
As we continue with Bill Bender, the national writer for the college for Sporting News, give him a follow on Twitter at BillBender92. Listen, you're the pride of Pickerington, Ohio, a youth coaching legend up there. But with this burgeoning rivalry between Clemson and Ohio State going on, I think a lot of Clemson fans and even some of my friends that are Ohio State fans here want to know the latest update today. Is there a chance to play football? Will it happen if it's not unanimous? And how bad has this been mismanaged?
Well, I'll try to get those one by one. I mean, we're hoping that they get an October 17th start. I know we've been here in Ohio, and I've watched 3 weeks of high school football right here in Pickerington. Pickerington's one of those hotbeds for talents, no different than a Rock Hill or, you know, some of those haunts you have in September or South Carolina. The leadership has been a mess. I said at the beginning when they made the decision to postpone that it was the right decision, but the wrong time for it. Because I'm not going to penalize anybody I don't penalize the Mountain West and MAC for canceling their season if they really believe that the safety concerns are like that. But with the Big Ten, felt like you could have waited. Now that you didn't wait and you weren't transparent and you had certain schools that want to play, there's one in particular up here that really wants another swing at Clemson, by the way, after last year. I think we all know who that is. It's led to a really confusion. And for me, if I take off the journalist hat for a second, there was an emptiness last week, knowing that there wasn't Big Ten football on top of all the other football that we had.
But, Bill, I know you need to roll. Give me a quick update on what your crystal ball may be for 2020. And also share with our people watching what you're working on with the Sporting News.
No, I mean, I'll be here working on college football stuff. I think we're all kind of looking at September 26th when the SEC shows up. No offense. I mean, then you'll know. Then Clemson will be able to size up some people they're going to run into down the line. You know, the Alabamas and the, you know, if it's a 2 SEC playoff with a Florida or a Georgia or an Auburn, that's who you should be watching. And in the meantime, I mean, Clemson's going to have some competition. Notre Dame, I think, adds an outstanding wrinkle to the conference, and it's going to be a lot of fun to see. So, yeah, we're just picks. Don't read those yet. My first 2 weeks of picks have been pretty rough, but I'm getting my feet under me, and then we'll go from there. So thanks for having me on, Mark. I appreciate it, as always.
Hey, listen, I can't wait till we can be one of the last people walking out of the media party the night before a national championship game. That's when I know I'll be back.
Absolutely, Mark. And I for one, I'm looking forward to it. Thanks so much.
Thank you much, Bill. Have a great day. And that was a lot of fun. And my wife may remember, guys, it was Bill Bender and my wife and me and like 4 or 5 other people. And we were the last 8 people to leave that media party in Tampa the night before the Clemson knocks off Alabama in that great game down there. But, you know, any other takeaways as we head into things? Because to me, one of the biggest takeaways is just still simply the unknown.
I would agree. One thing that we do know, Trevor Lawrence may be the best quarterback in the nation. He was very impressive, and like we talked about earlier, it's not like he had a full spring or a full fall to get ready for the opener, so he's doing a lot of work on his own. And you guys mentioned it before I came out here. Some of these freshmen are going to be big contributors to this football team in 2020.
And these aren't your typical freshmen that come in. These guys are motivated. They're ready to play. You can just tell that, these 7-on-7s and these camps during the summers, these guys are so much more ready to step into a college atmosphere and play as even opposed to when you guys came in the 70s.
Another thing that's impressive about Clemson, a lot of teams are, in Alabama is a plug-in, plug them and play. Wake Forest is a developmental school. Well, Clemson really is both. We've got a lot of 5-star guys, Dexter Lawrence, Trevor Lawrence, any number of 5-star guys have come in and lit the whole thing up. But there's guys like Reagan Upshaw. There's guys like Turner, the safety, Nolan Turner. Guys that have sit around for 2 or 3 years, developed themselves into great football players. So Dabo Swinney has found the Midas touch with plug-and-play guys, and also having a number of guys that come in, the guys that are workmanlike. And they set such a good example. I know when I was playing, Jeff was playing, we had guys, and Jeff's kind of one of those guys too. He's just a grinder, and he makes everybody on the team a better player because they're the kind of guys that go to practice every day. They know they're not the most talented guy on the team, and they will fight you tooth and nail, and they set such a good example. And you need a bunch of guys like that on every team.
Accountability is so big in every aspect of life. And so what we're going to do is join Cindy Green Isaac. She's the one that holds us accountable. I believe we have some fan questions, but again, we're live at Lakeside Lodge. Find out all the information on Clemson's only resort hotel experience. That's lakesidelodgeclemson.com, or just come by here. It's 13,500 Clemson Boulevard, right in Hartwell Village. We got Mr. Knickerbockers and Tipsy Taco and everything else right here for you in Hartwell Village. Absolutely next level experience. You can buy a condo, you can rent a condo, you can rent a hotel room. It's really up to you. But Cindy, let's take some questions from the crowd.
Well, I tell you what, I'm going to give my prediction on this game. I'm going to go with 56-12, of course, Clemson. But I think Jeff hit something on the head there when he said that our defense needs to be disciplined, because you've got Brandon Rainey, who executes the triple action or triple option, and you have to realize last week he averaged about 3.7 yards. So, you do 3 of those, and next thing you know, you've got a first down. Next thing you know, you're down to a touchdown. And I think that's one of the surprises that he did last year on Georgia Tech. So I hope that our defense is disciplined and they got their eyes open. But I also hope our offense is ready for Citadel's Green, who I don't want him coming through our line and sacking Trevor. So that's my prediction on this game. But I am here with Bill, and he's from Roswell, Georgia, and he's got a question for you guys.
Yeah, I agree with the prediction that it's going to be a blowout. So I'm kind of curious what you guys think about how long Trevor's going to play and who's going to be the first quarterback in once Trevor sits down.
I'm saying that Trevor Lawrence will play one half, and the kid DJ.
Let's just call him DJ.
Yeah, I want to say ukulele, but it's Uli.
Layla.
His
name is DJ.
It's DJ. Let's keep it simple.
I tell you what, he was another kid. Even though he had the 13 guys in there with him, he was impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, he's an impressive kid to look at. I mean, he's a big kid.
I think Joe and I are thankful that we're just Jeff and Joe. I'm not worried about what our name is.
Absolutely on that one. And, and again, it was great to get those guys some experience. I'm with y'all. Trevor, his Heisman chances may be handicapped by the fact he may play one series in the third quarter, maybe not. But I don't think he'll be in there for very long.
That's it.
All right. So, it's been such a pleasure tonight. We're talking Tiger greatness here with the Bostic brothers, and a program that y'all are extremely proud of, a university that y'all are extremely proud of as well. But I wanted to bring on a guest picker this week that I thought exemplified what I think the Bostic brothers do for Clemson University. So I'd like to take a chance to bring up here and welcome in Clemson head golf coach Larry Pinley. We're talking 38 seasons as Clemson's head golf coach. We're talking Ring of Honor, 70 greatest Redskins, and everything that y'all have done. He is actually, Coach Pinley, a member of the College Golf Hall of Fame. 29 NCAA trips in 38 years, 25 top 20 teams, 13 top 10 teams, in the 2003 national champion where they really beat Oklahoma State on the Death Star on Oklahoma State's own course. But Larry Pinley, Clemson golf coach, 38 years. Come up and join us, sir.
All right, Larry.
So, Coach, real quickly, let's talk about your team this year, because last year, golf is much like football. You don't want to play your best game in the second or third week of the season. You don't want to play your best tournaments then. But y'all were coming off a win in the Palmetto Invitational last year. You finished 14th in the rankings, and you got some returning players with Turk Pettit and Jacob Bridgman and a whole group of people ready to go this fall and spring.
We were very disappointed we didn't get to finish last year, but we have everybody back. So we're very excited. Unfortunately, the ACC has banned us from playing golf this fall.
Of all the things out there on a golf course, I would think that social distances itself.
I haven't been given an explanation, but we are the only conference in the United States not playing golf. So we get to watch the SEC and the Big 12 and those guys compete and play this fall. We can't play till January 1, but I can rest assured we will be ready come January 1st.
And 38 years here at Clemson, I mean, that's really taking over this program right after the Bostics left. Let's see, let's do the SEC math. 40 years ago, okay? But, the imprint, I can go back to a Rob Reeves, who I know and then Crawford Reeves. The Reeves family's so dear to my heart, but did you ever think when you took over this program 38 years ago that you'd be standing here still as golf coach? Because these things don't happen in life that much anymore.
Well, I mean, like these two, I wanted to play, but since I couldn't play, those who can't play coach. And I was blessed to have a great coach who was our athletic director, Bobby Robinson. And his last year in 1983, the Clemson golf team finished 5th in the country. A lot of people don't know that. Then my first year was the following year. So this was one of them deals where don't mess it up. It's
right.
Pretty good. So I've literally spent 38 years trying not to mess it up. So that's kind of where we've been.
And there's a lot to be said for that, because I'm betting that team had Dillard Pruitt on it possibly. And, talk about some of your former players and the impact. They've had great careers, but Dillard actually made it out on tour. Now he's gotten his amateur status back, but Dillard's now leaving his imprint through the PGA and is being a scorer or, all involved with that kind of thing now.
Dillard won he was our first Clemson player to win a PGA Tour event. He won the 1990 Chattanooga Open. Since then, we've had multiple wins, but Dillard has been he's been a staple on the PGA Rules Officials Committee. He actually is the second man in charge on the PGA Tour rules, and you see him on TV every other week. He does such a great job. Always wears an orange tie, which is great. But we're very proud of our former players for sure.
Doc Redmond, what a great transition from Bluffton down in that area of South Carolina. What a great transition. But you mentioned Lucas Glover now coming back, and of course he has a U.S. Open title to his. It's been amazing the number of players that have come out of this Clemson golf program and transitioned into professional golf.
Yeah, we're really proud of Doc. Doc is so young. I mean, Doc's still only 22 years old. So last year he would have been his senior year, and it was his second year on tour. He and our assistant coach Jordan Bird set up at Wingfoot since Monday, waiting to get into the U.S. Open as the first alternate. So all we really needed was one guy to get the COVID and he's in. And nobody got it. But anyway,
nobody called me. I could have done my best Tanya Harding impersonation up
really,
there. You
really.
know what I mean?
We could have used that.
All right, so again, you guys will get things started at the 1st of January, but you know, we're just proud of you. I want to say thank you. You've always been generous with your time with me, both on the radio and everything else throughout the years. But again, 38 years in one institution, it's absolutely amazing. I think you should be given a hand for what you've done here with Clemson University. But you feeling lucky to go up against the Bostic brothers and pick a few games in college football this weekend?
Yeah, I'm feeling real lucky.
All right. Well, this is what we're going to do, because I've got 5 games here that we're going to pick with Coach Pinley. And first of all, they start at noon tomorrow. Boston College playing their first game of the year against Duke. Duke's a 6.5-point favorite. We're not worried about point spreads. I just want to put that one in there. But Duke has that really big thing. They have one game under their belt in which they played well at Notre Dame. Duke's a 6.5-point favorite, but I'm going to tell you right now, watch out for Boston College in this game. They may have one of the best offensive lines in the country, as well as a running back. And I think their defense will be improved with the hiring of the Ohio State defensive coordinator. BC's going to go into Durham and win tomorrow. That's my prediction. What do you think, Joe?
I'm going with Duke. The biggest disadvantage that Duke has is the unknown of having a new coach at Boston College.
Mm-hmm.
But I think at home, Chase Bryce, one game under your belt, I'm going with Duke.
Coach Pinley?
I am going with Chase Bryce, and the fact that Duke has played a game.
Yes.
I think it'll help them.
All right. And
I like Duke as well. They're very well coached, and like you said, they've already got the jitters out of their stomach. They've already opened the season, and that's a big advantage.
And I knew all 3 of y'all were going to go with Duke, so that's exactly why I went with Boston College. But I'm telling you right now, I was trying to throw the love to the offensive line because BC does have literally one of the best offensive lines in the country coming back. Now, the champion from a couple of years ago, Central Florida, they're making their way up to Atlanta tomorrow. The 14th ranked UCF team, it's their first game of the year. They're playing Georgia Tech. Central Florida's a 7.5-point favorite, but I mentioned last week I had a gut feeling about Georgia Tech because I love Coach Collins. I mean, if you can win at Temple, unless you're Al Golden, you should be able to win anywhere. But Georgia Tech went down there, got down double digits to Florida State, fought their way back in a 16-13 win. Who do you think, Jeff Bostic, in this game? UCF is a 7.5-point favorite by the
I'm going to go with UCF. And you mentioned Temple. When I got finished playing, like 3 years after I got finished, I was doing the Big East Conference, and they were playing against Temple at the Vet. Temple's facilities were the worst I've ever seen. It was embarrassing, really. But we made the pick right there.
All right. And let's see, Coach Pinley, who you got between UCF and Georgia Tech?
I'm going for Central Florida for sure.
All right.
Yes, the candle goes out on the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. Their lack of talent will show up Saturday.
I'm going to be like Happy Gilmore doing the bull. Happy, stop that. I'm going to ride Georgia Tech till they take a loss, number 2. I'm really impressed with this Collins kid, but Collins coach, but the freshman quarterback, true freshman quarterback, goes into Tallahassee, showed very few effects of it last week. I was really, really impressed. Now, one of the games tomorrow has got nothing to do with the ACC, but it's Appalachian State. They won last week over what's a pretty good Charlotte team, but they're going to Marshall, who had a big win last week. App's a 4.5-point favorite, but I'm telling you, that App State-Marshall game tomorrow is one of the most intriguing games of the day. Joe, who do you got there?
Sound like the Thundering Herd out here, so I'm going to go with Marshall.
Okay. Yeah, it's that time with the train.
I'm going to take the Mountaineers.
Yep.
And I'm going to go with the Mountaineers.
I do too, because I do not want my former producer on my old radio show being in my driveway when I get
and
home.
my former head coach, Joe Gibbs, has still got a grandson playing at App State.
That's okay. There you go. But yeah, App State's been one of the most consistent group of 5 programs out there in the last 5 years, and I think it will continue, but I do think that's going to be a very good football game in Huntington, West Virginia. Then finally, game day is going to be at Louisville. The premier game in the ACC is being number 17 Miami. They knock off UAB in their opener last Thursday night. Louisville, they looked okay against Western Kentucky in a 35-21 win. I just like Scott Satterfield, and I think it was probably a chance not to show too much against Western Kentucky. And if you're going to get me into a coaching situation, I'm going to go with Scott Satterfield over Manny Diaz. So I'll go ahead and start. I'm going to take Louisville at home.
I'm going to take the same hometown that Muhammad Ali was from.
Absolutely.
I'll second that.
I will third that.
All right. I saw, speaking, since you brought Muhammad Ali into this bit, they said about the parts of his career, about him being a bear. You know, he was just a bear of a man when he was a fight, and then he became a circus bear sort of toward the end of his career, and then just a gentle bear as he got later in life, and I love that about Muhammad Ali. Then finally, it's the Dave Bowl up in Raleigh. It's a toss-up. Wake Forest at NC State. Wake Forest, to me, it was sort of hard to take away from what they are this year because they were outmanned from the first play this past Saturday night against Clemson. And Joe, you and I've discussed if anybody's really got any pressure, it might be Dave Dorn at NC State because they don't know if they're a football or a basketball school. I can see why this game's a toss-up. So somebody else take the lead.
I'm still a big fan of Dave Clawson, the coach at Wake Forest. I think when the talent is evened up, that they're going to prevail. And I'm picking Wake Forest to beat NC State in Raleigh. Just don't have a lot of faith in NC State. They just did not look good to me last year, and just looked like something that's kind of on the downside.
It feels like it's a broken culture to a certain extent with Dave Doran. But again, 38 years, Coach Larry Pinley's been head of the Clemson golf program, and what a great week with the U.S. Open going on and some former players being in there. And Coach, so thankful that you came and joined us. But also, I'm very proud to tell you, we at Clemson Sports News are, I think, the only site that covers Clemson that has a specifically golf design page to cover your golf team. So go to ClemsonSportsNews.com and you can catch up with everything going on with this Clemson golf program as well. But just again, thank you guys. You want to talk about making this mug look a lot better tonight? It's being surrounded by greatness like this.
You know, Larry came up on the tee about 15 years ago, and Joe and I were playing. And I said, Coach, what should I do? He said, play every day for a week and then take up tennis.
Yeah.
All right, Coach. God rest his soul with my brother. Got to share this one with you. My brother could hit the cover off of a baseball, but could not. He tried to hit a golf ball like he hit a baseball. So he was not having a good day. So my dad and one of his best friends said, Scott, we're going to let you throw the ball down the fairway, and then you can putt out, and we're going to bet on Mark to beat you. And to watch him back up 20 yards in the fairway and come running down and throw that guy, I don't think he could move that shoulder for 2 days afterwards, but have you ever seen that on a golf course before?
No, but I can only imagine. I bet it was a lot of fun.
It was, and it's one of those things that I'll never forget. But we're going to have next week open, and it might be a good time to get in some whitewater rafting or something next weekend because 4 home games for the Tigers here in Death Valley in October, Virginia on the 3rd, Miami on the 10th, down I-85 to Atlanta on the 17th, 24th Syracuse, and Boston College on Halloween. So we're going to have a busy month here at Lakeside Lodge, so we'll enjoy having it off. But, guys, when we end here, we want you to go up to Traditions because Louis Sagaty's going to get up there and start cutting some tunes and performing some tunes. And some of the best discussion in Clemson, South Carolina goes on after the show right up here.
Some of the best food, too.
Absolutely.
I had their burger for lunch. I'm probably drooling again.
My wife loves the blue cheese dip, and the trout last week was absolutely next level. It's farm to table, and everything here with Leighton Cubbage and Taj Boyd and the whole crew. They've been fantastic, and we're just really glad to have this in Clemson, and we will continue to grow this thing because Lakeside Lodge will be better than the Holiday Inn in 1979, and that's the standard that I've been told that we have to keep up with.
Absolutely.
They far surpassed it, believe me.
Yes.
So, but again, we want to thank Cliff and Clifton and all of our crew. You can go to BYOGgear.com and you can get all the great gear that they have. And remember, proceeds also go to the All In Foundation. And also, we'd be remiss if we don't mention our friend Russ Abear with Remax Clemson. You can give him a call at 654-4345 and just let Russ find the right fit for you. Again, acoustic music tonight by Louis Saggety, and he says for upbeat, recognizable tunes that gets everybody's toes a-tapping, just give Louis a call at 864-423-7314. But real quickly, for the October 2nd show, our guest will be Reggie Merriweather, former running back and now kind of sideline reporter. They had their first weird deal, if you will, here in Clemson, calling an away radio game this past week. And then we're also going to be joined by Ryan McGee from ESPN. Now, he and his brother and father have just written a book called Bloodlines and Sidelines. Ryan, of course, with ESPN, his father reffed his first Clemson game in 1982. So to see that passion between the family, and of course we'll have a special guest picker as well. But for everybody here at Lakeside Lodge, for our crew, Gary McDaniel and Cindy Green Isaacs and Cliff and Clifton and everybody else, guys, let's play some football. 4 p.m. tomorrow in the Valley, Clemson and the Citadel, and have a blessed night.
Right.